Do you have too many artifacts? Can't decide which artifacts to salvage and which to level up? Not sure where best to spend your resin? Have I got great news for you. Check out the new Gacha Build Planner.
In alpha only, do not expect this to work perfectly.
Create, edit, and upload your builds. Upload and rate your artifacts. Determine which are the best to keep and which are the best to salvage. The Gacha Build Planner currently supports both Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, with hopefully more games to come.
Remember, use at your own risk. No warranties expressed or implied. Blah, blah, blah.
All right. My name is Tony, and I'm the chief developer, or the only developer for the Gacha Build Planner. And I wanted to take you on a brief demo of the product. So there's a number of reasons that I built this product. One is to be able to track and manage your artifact builds for the characters that you have in your gacha game, whether it be Genshin or Star Rail. I know that there are other tools out there to track how you are developing the, whether it be the skills or the traces that you have for a character and getting the right ascension pieces or materials to level up that character. That's usually a little bit more straightforward. What I saw as missing was the ability to kind of track artifacts that you were going for each of your characters and making sure that you're tracking your progress along that route. So here I have an example of two characters that I have set up in my account. I have Chevreuse and Kachina. And you can see that with Chevreuse, I have the black tassel as my weapon of choice. I'm looking for artifacts that belong to the Song of Days Past set. And I'm looking for a 4-piece artifact set. And I want the Sands, Goblet, and Circlet to all be of HP percent. And I'm targeting a max HP of, say, 30,000 is my target. So this allows me to kind of keep track on how I'm doing with that. So I know essentially when I'm done or when I've reached my goals. So I can go in and let's say I do some farming for a while and I say, oh, I think I found a pretty good flower. Let me go in and I'm going to edit the flower to be the Song of Days Past. I'm going to say it's level 20. It's an HP flat flower. I'm going to add the substats that are on it. So let's say it's ATK flat. Didn't get lucky with that. And let's say it is defense percent and 7%. And I'm just making these up. And let's say you did get an HP percent on there too, which is pretty good. Let's say it's 5. I can then save this artifact. And then you can see I got it. And you can see that this shows up here to show me that I still have progress to make. And this up here will show exactly kind of how far I need to continue making progress. You can see I still don't have the set complete. I don't have the Sands, Goblet, or Circlet. And I certainly haven't reached that 30,000 max HP. So let's keep going. So my artifacts, you can see the enter all the information area, enter all the information in. And I'm not necessarily all the sets that are required. So I'll go through and add all the ones I want to set up. You can see this one slightly more slice. Hit my 4 or 5 artifact set requirement, and you'll see that's organized as a net. All right, so now I've established that I have these 5. I've gone out, I've done some farming, I've gone out and gotten these 5 artifacts, and look at that. I've met all of my goals. I've gotten all the sands, the goblet, and the circlet that I was looking for. I met the Song of Days Past requirement. I've met my max HP requirement. I actually hit 36,000 HP. And I got the nice big green check mark up here to indicate, you know what, this character, I am satisfied with how things have gone so far. With Kachina over here, maybe I want to do something a little bit different. So let's say I select a different weapon for her. So for Kachina, I want to select the Footprint of the Rainbow. It's one of her best, easy to get weapons. I want to use Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City for peace. And for her main stats, I want defense percent. I want geo damage bonus. you go. And then for the circlet, I don't really care if it's crit damage or crit rate. I'll accept both depending on what other requirements I have. So then maybe I set something like, okay, I want her defense to hit something like 1400. And I would like a crit rate of, let's say, 50% and a crit damage of 90%. So that's my goal. You can see that these stats show up here, and I can go ahead and add the artifacts as I find them, and again, keep track of kind of like how I'm doing with this particular build. So as you play the game and you collect more characters, you collect more artifacts, you can see that this starts to become a little bit more unwieldy to enter all this information manually. I think it's fine if you're doing one character at a time. But when you want to start doing more and more, there's some other automated help that would be useful. That's why there's an import-export functionality. So for example, I can click on here, and I can import the game data from a file. And this game data is exactly what you would get out of the Akasha scanner or the inventory camera. It's the standard GOOD good format that you get out of those tools. You'll be able to import your characters and all your artifacts into the system. More interestingly, when you get all of your artifacts into the system is the more kind of powerful ratings that you can generate based on kind of your prospective builds. So I've been experimenting with all sorts of different types of ratings that you can come up with for an artifact to determine which ones you want to keep, which ones you want to get rid of, and which ones you actually want to invest in, your XP in to try to level up. Which ones are the most useful for doing that, for which characters. So, for example, I'm going to take a look here, and when you first load all your artifacts, there's a button up here to click Update Your Metrics, and that will go through and actually run simulations of upgrading and up-leveling all your artifacts that you have in your inventory, all up to 2,100 of them, I think there are now, and see what would happen with 100 or so iterations of leveling up those artifacts and what they could potentially become. And that's what all these bars down here show, are all these different scenarios of what you're looking at in terms of the rating of the artifacts, just different ways to look at the artifact and how useful it is to keep around. So you can see, generally, I can search for things like the overall rating, and I can sort by that, and I can go to page 90, and then I can see a bunch of different artifacts that I can pretty much feel confident that it's time to at least get rid of, or at least that they're probably pretty unlikely to be useful. So that's the benefit of something like this, is if you want to know which artifacts you can cull that you no longer want to save, or at least the ones that are least likely to help your account, you now know that. On the other hand, the ones that are the most useful, the ones that are most likely to help your account. You can even filter by those that are unequipped. So you can say like, okay, this is the best artifact that I have that's likely to improve a character in my account, and I should spend my XP to go and level up that artifact to see if it can help me. You can see this is, for example, is a Wanderer's True Flower with crit damage and crit rate. It's taking into account the characters I have, which characters can use that set, and what the likelihood that this particular substats will level up my character in a way that I prefer. So to get into a little bit more detail, I'm going to take you back to the builds page, and we'll take a look at a particular build. I'll take a look at New Valette here. This is just the individual page for New Valette. You can see that I've specified that I want an HP Sands, I want a Hydro damage bonus goblet, and then a crit circlet. And then I've specified a bunch of criteria of the desired stats I'm looking for. You can see that I've ranked them in terms of 3, 2, and 1 star. And this little star over here means whether or not there's essentially a cap on that stat at which point it makes it no longer useful. So, for example, if I have an energy recharge of 150, I really want that energy recharge, but I've said anything beyond 150, like getting to 175, doesn't actually help my character. There's no help because there's a cooldown involved there. Or you could even say that if you have if your crit rate high enough and your crit rate's approaching 100%, there's no value in having a crit rate higher than 100%. So don't look at artifacts that actually have a higher crit rate than what I currently have. So there's just different ways to specify how you want to look at substats that would improve your character. There are, I can take a look at the top artifacts for this particular character and the ones that it would recommend that I consider putting onto this character. So let me go through with you the 7 different metrics that I've come up with so far, some of which may be useful, or maybe more useful or less useful, depending on kind of where you are and what you're looking for. So the most obvious, straightforward one is just the straight up rating. This is essentially kind of a point system for like how many substats does this, how many roles on this particular artifact meet the needs of your character. So for example, we can see that Nouvelette has, a high likelihood that he wants crit, he wants some energy recharge, and he wants HP. We can see that this particular, feather has a roll of crit damage, 4 rolls of crit rate, and a roll of energy recharge, such that those are the top 3 things that Nouvelette wants. So that particular artifact would be good on Nouvelette. Now, this is already given to Gaming, so we're not going to necessarily move it off of him. But in terms of pure rating, this is one of his top artifacts. You may want to obviously look at unequipped artifacts. So you can see, like, for example, here's another Marturus Hunter crit rate circlet that may be beneficial. Now, he's already got a crit damage circlet, but maybe I want to give him this crit rate one to improve his crit rate. You can see it's unrolled. It's got a crit damage and energy recharge and HP percent substats on there. This is completely unrolled. This could really help Nouvelette. It's a good artifact for me to keep around, which is why it's his number 1 listed artifact. And it's on set. Let me add that. All of these ratings try to account for what the set bonus is. So if you have specified that Nouvelette needs a Marturus Hunter, it's going to boost the ratings of any other artifacts that are in that set and depress the ratings of anything that is not in that set, based on how many off pieces that you've configured for that character. So if you just need a two set piece bonus, that's fine. You have a lot more off pieces. Those off pieces will be ranked higher or rated higher. In most cases, you're going to have just the one off piece, and so that will depress the value of your off pieces. Although you will see that really good things like goblets that have the right substats will still be ranked very highly for that character, because that's the most likely place where you're going to be able to improve your character. So the rating is, as I said before, just a pretty much simple, how many substats does this contribute? How many substat rolls does this contribute to your character? 3 stars obviously are weighted more than 2 stars, which are rated more than 1 star. And there's a maximum, I think, of the highest possible rating is, I think, 10. So you can see that with the crit damage, energy recharge, and HP percent, that gives me a rating of about 3.5, which is actually really good for an unrolled artifact, which is why that's so high. So that's the simplest one. This is a really good way to kind of just determine what is fodder and what you want to keep around is the rating. Plus minus is essentially how good this artifact would be based on your rating, relevant to what that character currently has. So for example, you can see that Nouvelette has a Sans that is an HP percent. This Sans will have a 1/4 point higher rating, could potentially have a 1/4 point higher rating than the existing artifact that he has. In addition, the plus minus odds, it means that there's a 12% chance that plus minus will turn out to be positive, because it could still be negative. I wanted to quickly talk about this because I realized I wasn't particularly clear. It may seem odd that a artifact on the character that's already a level 20 and another artifact that is already rolled as a level 20, that there could be some mystery about the odds of something being better than another thing. Either it is or it isn't. And the reason that it is still kind of undetermined is because we don't know which, in an optimal case necessarily, which piece will be the off piece. If we know the sands is the off piece, then this is going to be better than what Nuvolet has today. But we don't know if the sands will end up being the off piece. It's not the off piece that Nuvolet has today, but it doesn't make this piece particularly worthless, which is why that kind of 100% chance of it being better than what he has is reduced by essentially the odds of this particular sands being an off piece for Nuvolet in general. And that calculation is actually fairly complicated. It looks at the odds of receiving a particular main stat that you're looking for per type of artifact that you're looking for. And that's how it comes up with that number. Plus minus odds are the likelihood you're going to get a positive plus minus, is essentially the way that works. And then we have our 4 final ratings. And these ratings are based on, it's the same information, but it's different dimensions of how it's looking at the data. So we have current stats, current artifacts, which basically looks at what are the odds that this artifact is going to be at least as good as the current artifact that character has in the context of the other current artifacts. Meanwhile, there's the other one, which is the current stats random artifacts, asks the question, how good is this artifact compared to the artifact that the character has relative to their current stats if all of the other artifacts were randomized? So how likely would it be that this particular artifact, given 4 other random artifacts, would at least be as good given the current stats that this character has to get back to that point? So what you really want to look at in both of these cases are in situations where an artifact is not as good as it has a lower current stats current artifacts or a lower current stats random artifacts than the existing artifact for that character. That means you can dump it. That means you can move on. Meanwhile, if you know that the current stats random artifacts and current stats current artifacts are both higher than the current artifact for that character, that is a directionally positive change for that character. It means you're probably improving the stats for that character. At least you're not making them any worse. It is at least a net zero change on average. Meanwhile, so this is all relative looking to the character's current stats, because that can be useful to know, like, okay, sure, you might want to get 90% crit rate, but now you got 60. So there's no point in looking at 90 while you still have 60. What the desired stats are meant to do is actually do the same calculation, but look at what your desired preferred ultimate endgame stats are. So instead of asking the question, does this necessarily make my artifact better now, what this asks the question is, what's the likelihood that this artifact will take me to the end game? Like how likely is it that this will be an artifact that is on my character when I've reached my end game stats? And that's what these tell you. And it's just another way of looking at it's just another metric you can use to kind of evaluate. That leads me to the final point of where we are today in terms of kind of a global state of these metrics. Right now, it's unclear to me which of these is the most useful and which of these is the least useful, and which of these and which combinations of these can actually help you understand what actions to take on your artifacts, whether to level them up or to salvage them. So this is one of the reasons I want to get this out there in front of people, have them look at this data, have them run the metrics over their artifacts and get some feedback on, hey, is the system giving it is it giving the expected results? Is it showing, hey, these artifacts are really good, these are the ones I obviously would want to level up in my account, or is it giving garbage information or something that isn't particularly accurate? So that's the whole idea behind this. You can go to a character, you can say, hey, I want to level up this character, what artifacts do I have? When you want to look at kind of the global picture, you can also do that by looking at the artifacts as a whole and just looking at which are the best artifacts you have and sort them by any one of those metrics. These metrics are both global and character based. So you can, like right now on this page, we're looking at these particular metrics globally. So it just takes the max value for any character in your account. When you're looking at, like we did on the previous page for a particular character, it's looking at the ratings just for that character. Similarly, we can go to a particular artifact and we can take a look at the plus minus and see which other characters this particular artifact might be useful for. So for example, we can see that based on my configuration, this is the Carrara would be the best character for this particular artifact. Not that it's a great artifact for Carrara, but if I had to give this artifact to somebody, Carrara is the best character for that. So I think the next question is kind of where do we go from here? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This has been a project I've been working on for a solid 7-8 months. And while I'm really, really proud of it, and I think I've made a ton of progress, there's likely a lot of bugs. There's likely a lot of issues. I have been the only one who's been really testing and using this piece of software. And I need to push this out to a broader community to get feedback. There's also, a lot of time that I'm going to need to invest in making the calculation engine faster. So if I click on this update metrics button, you can see that it's calculating about maybe 10 artifacts a second. Part of that has to do with kind of doing it in the browser and the limitation on being able to use one particular thread at a time. I want to be able to do this as a background process and have it run hopefully much, much, much faster and not have to update or to re-render the screen every time. I think that will improve the user experience. One feature that I think is really missing from this, and something that I think is probably going to be the biggest feature priority going forward, is a calculation of kind of the remaining resin it's going to take to meet your stat goals, your end game stat goals. I think if you're like me, it's great to shoot for, some arbitrarily high amounts of crit and damage and, energy recharge and whatever. Except, it's not always clear on the amount of effort and the odds of likelihood of improving where you already are and the odds of getting to that point. So I think it would be really helpful to understand, like, hey, if you want to get to these endgame stats, this is based on the weapon you have, based on kind of the character you have, the set bonus you've chosen. You're talking, 2,000 resin you're going to have to spend, 10,000 resin in order to just have 50-50 odds to kind of reach that point. And I think that's valuable information, like to know when to stop. I would also like to have a more holistic, recommendation engine for salvage. So I don't want it to be just something where you go and look at the different ratings and have to kind of piece together which artifacts you think you might want to salvage. I want it to be able to proactively say, click a button, hey, here's 20 artifacts that you can get rid of right now. And then finally, there's a good amount of UX improvement I think I need to do. I am proud of the way it looks, and I think I've put a lot of effort into making it look nice, but I am certainly not a UX or UI developer. That's not my primary forte. And I think spending time into improving the usability of the tool and improving the presentation of the tool will be really, really, really helpful. I do want to thank, some of the other tools that are out there that kind of helped inspire this particular tool. Genshin Center's Ascension Planner and, the Honkai Star Rail Station Archives Ascension Planner I have used since day one of Genshin and Star Rail. So I certainly those tools have definitely inspired me to build this one. I want to thank the genshin-db package and the starrail.js package for making certain aspects of this development a lot easier in terms of getting character and artifact data from the system. I want to thank the people who worked on the inventory camera and Akasha scanner to make the exports possible. And obviously, thank all of you for being willing to kind of put in the time and effort to kind of give whatever feedback you can. All right. Thank you very much, and good luck with Gacha Build Planner.